My sister found out about my bonus before I'd even decided what I wanted to do with it. By dessert, she had already decided what she was going to do with half. We were sitting around my parents' dining table on a Sunday evening when Lauren put down her wine glass, looked directly at me, and said, "$20,000 would solve almost everything for me." I thought she was talking about one of the business ideas she was always planning. So I said, "Probably." She smiled. "Good, then we agree." I stared at her. "Agree about what?" She looked around the table like I was being deliberately difficult. "Your bonus." My father stopped cutting his food. My mother looked down at her plate. And Lauren continued as if we had already discussed this. "You got almost $41,000 after taxes, right?" I felt my stomach tighten. I had told my mother approximately what had hit my account. I had not told Lauren. Before I could ask how she knew, Lauren said, "Half is still more than enough for you. $20,000 to me, you keep the rest." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because sometimes your brain tries to turn something ridiculous into a joke before it accepts that the person saying it is serious. Lauren did not laugh. She leaned back in her chair. "What?" I said. "You just divided my bonus." She rolled her eyes. "We're family, Natalie." That sentence would sound very different to me 3 weeks later. At the time, I thought the problem was simple. My sister believed she was entitled to my money. I had no idea she had already used something much more valuable. My name. 3 weeks after that dinner, I was sitting at my desk on a Wednesday morning when an alert appeared on my phone. A credit monitoring service had detected a change. I opened it expecting something routine, maybe a balance update, maybe a score fluctuation. Instead, I saw an account I did not recognize. Personal installment loan. Original amount, $27,400. Opened 8 months earlier. Current balance, $23,186. One payment recently reported late. I read the screen 3 times. I had never borrowed $27,400. I had never applied for a personal loan. I had never even heard of the lender. And yet there it was, under my name. For 8 months, someone had been making payments on a loan attached to my credit. Then one payment was missed, and that single missed payment was how I finally learned the loan existed. My sister's words came back to me immediately. "We're family." But at that point, I still did not know what Lauren had done. I only knew one thing. Someone had borrowed money using my identity. And whoever it was had known enough about me to keep it hidden for almost a year. My name is Natalie Brooks. I was 34 when this happened. Lauren is 4 years younger than me. If you met us separately, you probably would not immediately assume we grew up in the same house. Not because we look different. We actually look enough alike that strangers used to mistake us for twins when we were teenagers. But our relationship with money had always been opposite. I liked knowing what things cost. Lauren liked knowing whether she could make the next payment. I had a spreadsheet before I had furniture. Lauren had furniture before she had money. I do not say that because I think saving makes someone morally better. It does not. I have made stupid financial decisions. I have bought things I did not need. I once paid for a gym membership for 11 months after I stopped going because I kept telling myself I would start again on Monday. But Lauren lived with a different assumption. If something went wrong, someone would help. Usually my parents. Sometimes me. And because someone almost always did, the consequences rarely arrived at the same time as the decision. When Lauren was 22, she moved into an apartment she could barely afford because she loved the neighborhood. 3 months later, my parents started covering part of the rent. When she was 24, she financed a car with a payment that was too high. My father helped with insurance. When she was 26, she left a job without another one lined up because her manager was toxic. Maybe he was. I never met him. But she spent 4 months unemployed, and my mother paid her utilities. When Lauren turned 27, she tried selling handmade home decor online. The business lasted less than a year. My parents gave her money for supplies. I built her website for free. When she finally closed the store, nobody discussed the money that disappeared into it. That was normal in our family. Lauren's financial problems were events. My financial stability was infrastructure. If Lauren needed help, we talked about what happened. If I had savings, we talked about what I could do. There is a difference. It took me years to recognize it. My parents were not cruel people. That matters. My father worked for the same manufacturing company for almost 30 years. My mother taught elementary school. They were careful with money, but they were generous with us. They paid for part of both our college costs. They helped with cars. They let us come home when we needed to. They showed up. But somewhere along the way, they made one mistake over and over again. They confused protecting Lauren from disaster with helping her become stable. And because I rarely created disasters, I became the person expected to absorb some of hers. My mother had a sentence she loved. "Natalie will be fine." It was meant as praise. If Lauren needed $2,000 and I said I could only contribute $500, Mom would say, "You'll be fine, Natalie." If I chose not to join a family vacation because I was saving, she would say, "You're always so disciplined. You'll be fine." If Lauren borrowed something and returned it late or damaged or occasionally not at all, the explanation was, "You can replace it. You'll be fine." I became so used to being the person who would be fine that I stopped noticing what the phrase really meant. It meant my discomfort counted less because I recovered faster. It meant my planning created extra capacity for other people. It meant if I had $10 and Lauren had $2, the family did not see $12 divided between 2 adults. They saw an imbalance that I had the ability to fix. For most of our 20s, I participated in that system. Not always happily, but I participated. I paid Lauren's phone bill twice. I covered a security deposit once. I loaned her $3,500 when her transmission failed. She repaid about half. When she apologized, I told her not to worry about the rest. That was my choice. And I do not regret helping her. What I regret is how often I helped without realizing that every rescue was quietly changing her expectation of me. Lauren stopped seeing generosity as something I decided. She began seeing it as something my financial position obligated me to provide. The first time she said it plainly was 2 years before the bonus. We were having coffee when she told me she wanted to move. Her rent had increased. She said she needed about $6,000 between a deposit, moving costs, and furniture. I told her I could lend her $2,000. She frowned. "You definitely have more than that." That sentence bothered me. I asked, "How would you know?" She laughed. "Because you're you." I said, "That doesn't mean you know what's in my account." She said, "Come on, Nat, you make good money. You don't have kids. What are you saving all of it for?" I remember sitting there wondering how my savings had somehow become evidence against me. I said, "My future." She rolled her eyes. Very inspiring. I still gave her the $2,000. She repaid it. Slowly. But she repaid it. So I let the moment go. That was another mistake. Not lending her money. Letting the attitude go. By 34, I was a senior project manager for a large logistics company. It was not glamorous. Nobody was making movies about my job. I spent most days solving problems before they became expensive. Schedules, contracts, vendors, budgets, teams in 3 time zones. That year, I had led a difficult systems rollout that had gone badly at first, and then eventually, very well. For 6 months, I worked more evenings than I want to remember. I postponed a vacation. I took calls from hotel rooms. I fixed mistakes that were mine. I fixed mistakes that were not mine. When year-end reviews came around, my director told me I was receiving a performance bonus much larger than usual. The gross amount was a little over $63,000. After withholding, just under $41,000 hit my account. I stared at the deposit the morning it arrived. $40,000 is not enough to make someone rich, but it was enough to change several things at once. I had about $11,000 left on my student loans. My emergency fund was solid, but not where I wanted it. I'd also been thinking about buying a townhouse within the next year or 2. So I made a simple plan: pay off the remaining student loan, move $10,000 into my home fund, put part into retirement and investments, keep a few thousand for something enjoyable. For once, I wanted to spend money without turning it into a moral test. Maybe travel, maybe replace my aging sofa, maybe both. I did not announce the bonus to my family. I mentioned it to my mother during a phone call. She asked how work had gone. I told her the project had paid off and that I had received a strong bonus. She congratulated me. Then she asked, "How strong?" I should have said, "Strong enough." Instead, I gave her the rough number. I knew better, but she was my mother. I did not think information needed protecting from her. A week later came the dinner. My parents had invited both of us. Lauren arrived late. She was in a good mood. Too good, actually. She kissed Mom, hugged Dad, then hugged me and said, "Miss Corporate America." I smiled. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, congratulations. I looked at my mother. She immediately became interested in moving a serving dish. That told me everything. Lauren knew. At first, I was annoyed, but it was not enough to ruin dinner. We talked about normal things: Dad's knee, Mom's school, a cousin's engagement. Lauren complained about how expensive everything had become: her rent, groceries, daycare for her son, Ethan. Lauren was divorced. Ethan was 5. His father paid child support, but not always on time. That was one reason my parents felt especially protective of her. And to be fair, single parenting was difficult. I knew that. I had helped because I knew that. But hardship can explain why someone needs help. It does not automatically decide who must provide it. After dinner, my mother brought out a lemon cake. Lauren started talking about a debt consolidation company she'd been researching. I did not think much of it. She had credit card balances. I knew that. Then she said, if I could wipe out 20 grand, I'd finally breathe. My father said, "That's a lot of money." Lauren looked at me. Not to everyone. I should have understood where the conversation was going. I did not. I said, "It's a lot to everyone." She smiled. "You just got 40. After taxes." Exactly. Then came the sentence. 20,000 would solve almost everything for me. I said, "Probably." She said, "Good, then we agree." I laughed. She did not. Agree about what? Your bonus. I looked at my parents. My father looked uncomfortable. My mother said, "Lauren, maybe don't phrase it like that." Not. "Lauren, that is not your money." Not. "You cannot claim your sister's bonus." Maybe don't phrase it like that. Lauren shrugged. What? She doesn't need all of it. I said, "You don't know what I need." She said, "You're debt-free, basically." I still have student loans. 11,000. That was another detail I had never given her. I looked at Mom again. This time she said, "I may have mentioned it." I could feel myself becoming angry, but I kept my voice level. "Can everybody stop discussing my finances?" Lauren laughed. "Why are you being weird?" "I'm not being weird. You're dividing money I earned." She leaned forward. "I'm not asking for all of it." I remember that sentence perfectly, as if restraint made the demand reasonable. I said, "You're not getting half." Her face changed. "Okay, what are you comfortable with?" "Nothing." The table went quiet. Lauren actually blinked. "Nothing." "No." She looked at my parents as if they were supposed to intervene. My mother did, just not the way I hoped. She said, "Natalie, maybe hear her out." I looked at her. "She just told me half my bonus belongs to her." Lauren interrupted. "I said it would make the biggest difference with me." I said, "That is not the same thing as it belonging to you." "Fine, whatever. But you're going to put it in accounts and forget about it while I'm drowning." "You don't know what I'm doing with it." "I know you." "No, you know I save." "Exactly." She said it like saving was hoarding. My father finally spoke. "Lauren, your sister doesn't owe you $20,000. I felt relieved for about 2 seconds. Then he added, But Natalie, if you wanted to help with some of the credit cards, that would be a generous thing. There it was. The family compromise. Lauren asks for half. Dad negotiates down. Mom asks me to listen. And suddenly the discussion is not whether my sister has a claim on my money. It's how much I should give her. I said, no. Lauren pushed her chair back. This is unbelievable. I said, I agree. She stood. You know what your problem is? I did not answer. You think because you have a title and a retirement account, you're better than everybody. I don't think that. You act like it. How? Everything is always numbers with you. Everything has to make sense on your spreadsheet. I said, it's my money. She laughed. We're family, Natalie. My mother said, Lauren. But Lauren was already grabbing her purse. She looked at me and said, one day you're going to need somebody too. Then she left. The door slammed. My mother sighed. My father rubbed his forehead. And somehow, within 30 seconds, I could feel the conversation shifting toward how I should have handled Lauren more gently. I stopped it. I said, do not tell her my salary, bonus, debt balance, savings, or anything else about my finances again. My mother looked offended. I didn't know it was secret. It wasn't. Now it is. She said, she worries because things are harder for her. I said, things being harder for her does not make my paycheck communal. My father said, nobody said communal. I looked at him. Dad, she just assigned herself $20,000. He had no answer. I left soon after. For the next several days, Lauren did not contact me. Then she sent a long text. It began with, I've had time to think. I almost laughed. She wrote that she understood I was not obligated to give her money. Then came 3 paragraphs explaining why a one-time family contribution could change Ethan's life. She listed credit cards, a medical bill, a personal debt, a car repair. She ended with, I know you're upset about how I said it, but I hope you can separate that from what family is supposed to mean. I did not respond. 2 days later, she sent, so I guess that's your answer. I still did not respond. I thought I was establishing a boundary. I thought the conflict was about the bonus. Then my credit alert arrived. I opened the report. Personal loan. $27,400. 8 months old. Balance $23,186. 1 late payment. At first, I assumed it had to be an error. Credit files can contain mistakes. I knew that much. So I pulled reports from the major bureaus. The account appeared on more than one. Same lender, same opening date, same original amount. I searched my email. Nothing. I searched old documents. Nothing. I checked my banking history in case I had somehow forgotten something absurd. Nothing. I called the lender. The representative asked security questions. Then she confirmed the account existed. I told her I had never applied for it. Her tone changed immediately. She transferred me to a different department. That conversation lasted almost an hour. I will not pretend I understood every technical thing they told me. Mostly, I remember my heart beating so hard that I had to keep standing up and walking around my kitchen. They confirmed the account had been opened online. They confirmed the identifying information matched me closely enough to pass their process at the time. They could not tell me everything immediately because I was disputing the account. They explained what documentation I would need to provide. Before we ended the call, I asked one question. Where did the money go? The representative told me she could not disclose all account details yet while the dispute was being reviewed, but she confirmed the proceeds had been transferred electronically after approval. I hung up, then I froze my credit. Changed passwords, turned on every security alert I could find, and sat on my sofa with my laptop open, staring at a number. $27,400. Whoever had taken the loan had been paying it. That was the strangest part. It did not look like someone who stole my identity, grabbed cash, and disappeared. For 7 months, the payment history was clean. Then 1 late payment. I started thinking about who knew enough about me. My birth date was not difficult to find. My address was known to dozens of people. My employer was on LinkedIn. But there were other details the lender had apparently verified that were not public. Old addresses, financial information, personal history. And then one thought came into my head. Lauren. I rejected it immediately. My sister was entitled. She was impulsive. She could be selfish. But taking out a loan in my name? That was different. That was not asking too much. That was not family pressure. That was identity theft. I told myself I was jumping to the worst conclusion because we had just fought. So I did not call her. Instead, I called my mother. I said, I found something weird on my credit. There was a pause. What do you mean? A loan. Another pause. What kind of loan? Personal loan. How much? I said, why? What do you mean, why? I'm asking. I gave her the amount. She went very quiet, not shocked. Quiet. There is a difference. I said, Mom? She said, is it definitely yours? I didn't take it out. Well, maybe there's a mix-up. Maybe. She said, have you called the lender? Yes. What did they say? That they're investigating. Her voice changed. Investigating? Yes. Does that mean police? I stopped moving. I had been pacing. Now I stood completely still. I said, I didn't mention police. She answered too quickly. I know, I'm just asking. I said, why would you ask that? Because when you say someone opened something in your name, that's where my mind went. Maybe. That explanation was possible, but the call felt wrong. I ended it without accusing her of anything. Then I called my father. Dad sounded genuinely confused. He asked what lender, what date, whether I had recently financed anything. His reaction was completely different from Mom's. He said, call them immediately. I did. Freeze your credit. I did. File whatever dispute they need. Don't wait. I said, okay. Then he asked, do you think somebody you know did this? I hesitated. I don't know. He said, if you're thinking Lauren because of the dinner, don't accuse her without evidence. I said, I didn't say Lauren. Silence. Then Dad said, I'm just saying. That bothered me too, but not as much as Mom. That evening, Lauren called. I had not told her anything. My mother must have. I let it ring. She called again, then texted. Mom said something is wrong with your credit. Call me. I waited almost 20 minutes before calling back. She answered immediately. What happened? I said, I found a loan. What kind? Personal. How much? I did not answer. She said, is it being paid? My entire body went cold. Not who opened it. Not, are you okay? Not, how did that happen? Is it being paid? I said, why would you ask that? She hesitated. Because if it's being paid, maybe it's just showing up wrong. How would a loan I never opened showing up under my name be okay because somebody is paying it? I didn't say okay. You asked if it was being paid. I'm just trying to understand. I said, I never told you anyone had made payments. Silence. Lauren recovered quickly. Obviously, loans have payments, Natalie. That isn't what I said. You're being paranoid. Maybe I was. But for the first time, I stopped trying to talk myself out of the possibility. I asked, do you know anything about this loan? She laughed, not naturally. What? Do you know anything about it? No. Are you sure? Oh my God, you think I took a loan in your name because we fought about your bonus? I asked you a question, and I answered. Okay. She sounded angry now. Natalie, this is insane. I hope so. What does that mean? It means I hope I'm wrong. I ended the call. Then I wrote down everything she had said. That became my routine. Dates, times, words. Not because anyone told me to, because I suddenly did not trust my memory to carry something this important. The lender sent forms. I completed them. I filed the reports they required. I pulled every account I could find. I checked my credit again and again because once you discover one thing you did not authorize, your brain starts imagining 10 others. There were no other unknown accounts. That should have comforted me. Instead, it made the loan feel more targeted. One account, one amount. Someone had not been randomly opening everything possible. They needed a specific amount of money, and then they had been paying it. I called Lauren 2 days later. I asked a question without mentioning the loan. Remember that debt consolidation company you talked about at dinner? She said, "What about it? How much debt do you actually have?" She became defensive. Why? You said $20,000 would solve almost everything. It would. How much is everything? Why are you interrogating me? I'm asking. She said, I don't know exactly. Lauren knew exactly. She always knew when she wanted someone else to pay. I said, more than $27,000? Silence. Then she said, is that the loan? There it was again, information sliding into the conversation too easily. I said, what? You said 27. Yes. So that's how much the loan is? I said nothing. Lauren said, Natalie, stop doing that. Doing what? Trying to trap me? I asked about your debt. This is ridiculous. She hung up. The next morning, my mother called. She sounded exhausted. She said, can you come over tonight? I asked why. We need to talk. About what? Just come. I said, no, tell me now. She sighed. Then she said the sentence that confirmed everything before she technically confirmed anything. Lauren was going to tell you? I closed my eyes. I had been standing in my kitchen holding a mug. I put it down because I was afraid I would drop it. I said, tell me what? My mother started crying. Natalie, tell me what she was going to tell me. She was desperate. I felt almost detached. What did she do? Mom said she needed to consolidate some things. She couldn't get approved for enough. I said, did she take out the loan in my name? My mother did not answer. Mom, she has been paying it. That was her answer. Not yes, she has been paying it. I sat down. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then I asked, how long have you known? She said, not from the beginning. How long? A few months. I laughed once. It sounded strange even to me. A few months. She told me when she was struggling with one of the payments. And you didn't tell me. She said she had it under control. Mom, she opened a $27,000 loan in my name. I know. No, I don't think you do. Natalie, I know it's serious. You knew for months. I was trying to get her to tell you. By doing what? Silence. What did you actually do to get her to tell me? I talked to her. And when she didn't? Mom started crying harder. She has Ethan. She was terrified. That made me angry in a way nothing else had. Ethan. Always Ethan. A 5-year-old child had become the moral shield around every adult decision his mother made. I said, do not use her son to explain this. I'm not. Yes, you are. She made a terrible decision because she was drowning. She used my identity. She was paying it. There it is. What? You keep saying that like it makes it smaller. I am saying you are not losing money. I stood up. I was carrying $27,000 of debt I didn't know existed. But the payments, one late payment is how I found it. Mom went silent. I said, so yes, it already affected me. She said she'd fix it. How? I don't know. Exactly. My mother asked me not to do anything until we talked as a family. I said, no. Natalie, please. No. Just give us 48 hours. For what? So Lauren can figure something out. She had 8 months. She didn't think of it the way you're thinking of it. I almost could not believe that sentence. How did she think of it? Mom hesitated. Then she said, she thought because your credit was so strong and she was making the payments, it wouldn't hurt you. There it was, the logic. Not, I thought Natalie gave me permission. Not, I thought the account was mine. Lauren knew it was my credit. She knew it was my name. She simply believed she could use them because she intended to manage the consequences. I said, did she know I would say no? Mom did not answer. Did she? She was afraid you would. So she knew she needed permission. Natalie? She knew. I ended the call. Lauren came to my apartment that night. I had not invited her. She called from downstairs because I had already told the building not to let anyone up without confirming with me. I almost refused to see her. Then I decided I wanted to hear her say it herself. We met in the lobby seating area. She looked terrible. No makeup, hair tied back. She sat across from me and started with, I'm sorry. I said, tell me exactly what you did. She looked around. Natalie? Exactly. She rubbed her hands together. I needed money. I know. My cards were maxed. I know. I had medical bills from when Ethan was sick. There was the car and some other stuff. How much? She said. About 31. And you couldn't get approved. Not at a rate I could afford. So you used my identity. She flinched. When you say it like that. I stopped her. No. What? No, you do not get to use that sentence. She looked confused. I said, when somebody describes exactly what you did and it sounds bad, the problem is not the wording. She looked down. Then she said, I was going to pay every penny. You were paying the lender, Lauren, not me. I know. Do you? Yes. How did you think this ended? I thought I'd pay it off. It was a multi-year loan. I was going to refinance once my credit improved. And if your credit didn't improve? She did not answer. And if you lost your job? Silence. And if you got sick? Stop. And if you missed payments? I missed one. One that I know about because it hit my report. I can fix that. No, you can't. I'll call them. You are not calling anyone pretending to be me again. Her face changed. I stared at her. She stopped. Then she said, I didn't think of it as stealing. That sentence hurt more than a confession would have. I asked, what did you think it was? She started crying. Borrowing. My identity? Your credit. I actually felt my chest tighten. She said it so naturally. Your credit. As though it were a tool in my garage. As though I had a ladder and she needed to reach something. I said, you cannot borrow someone's credit without asking. I know that now. You knew it then. No. Yes, you did. I was panicking. You knew I would say no. She looked away. That was the answer. I asked, why didn't you ask me? Her voice dropped. Because you would have said no. I nodded. There it was. Everything else was noise. She knew my answer, so she removed me from the decision. I said, you knew consent mattered. Natalie, I was desperate. So you chose not to ask because you knew I wouldn't agree. I was going to tell you after I got it under control. When? She wiped her face. I don't know. Before or after you demanded half my bonus? She looked up. That isn't fair. I almost laughed. You took out a loan in my name and then sat at Mom and Dad's table telling me $20,000 of my bonus should be yours. I wasn't connecting those things. I am. That bonus could have cleared most of the balance. The words left her mouth before she could stop them. We both froze. I said, so that was the plan. No. You wanted half my bonus to pay down the loan you secretly took out in my name. I was trying to fix it with my money. I would have paid you back. I leaned back. Do you hear yourself? She started crying again. I didn't know what else to do. You could have told me the truth. You would have hated me. I don't hate you. She looked at me hopefully. I finished the sentence. But I don't trust you. That hurt her. I could see it. For 1 second, I almost apologized. Old habit. Then I remembered the account on my credit report. 8 months, $27,400. A financial obligation I had never agreed to. And my sister had sat at dinner demanding my bonus because in her mind my money could erase the evidence of what she had already done with my name. I asked, "Did Mom help you open it?" Lauren shook her head immediately. "No." "Did she know when you opened it?" "No." "When did she find out?" "Around 3 months ago." "How?" I told her. "Why?" "I was short on a payment." "So you asked Mom for money?" "Yes." "And told her why?" "Yes." "What did she say?" Lauren looked uncomfortable. She freaked out. "Then what?" "She told me I had to tell you." "But you didn't." "No." "And she kept your secret." Lauren said, "She was trying to protect everybody." "No, she was protecting you." Lauren did not argue. I asked about Dad. She said he did not know. I believed her because his reaction had been different. Then Lauren said, "Please don't report it." I said nothing. "If you dispute it as fraud, they're going to investigate me." "Yes." "I could lose my job." "Maybe." "I could have legal problems." "Yes." "Natalie, I have a child." There it was again. I said, "You had a child when you opened the loan." She stared at me. "You cannot make Ethan the reason I accept something you did before he was ever part of this conversation." "I made a mistake. A mistake is missing a payment." "Fine. I did something wrong." "Yes. But I have been fixing it every month." "No, you have been maintaining it." She frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means paying a fraudulent loan every month does not turn it into my loan." She started crying again. "I don't know what you want me to say." "I don't need you to say anything." "Then what are you going to do?" "I am going to get it off my credit." Her face went pale. "Natalie, I did not borrow that money." "You know what happens if you tell them that." "I am not going to lie and say the debt is mine." "You could let me refinance it. You already said you can't qualify." "I can try." "You have had 8 months. Give me time." "How much?" "I don't know." "That's the problem." She stood up. "You're really going to blow up my life." That sentence changed something in me. I said, "No." She looked at me. "You blew up your life when you signed my name to your debt." She started to answer. I said, "I am just refusing to carry the explosion." Then I stood and left. The next morning, my father called. My mother had told him everything. He sounded older. That is the only way I can describe it. He said, "Is it true?" "Yes." "How much?" $27,400 originally. He swore quietly. My father rarely swore. Then he said, "Your mother knew?" "Yes." "For months?" "Yes." He was silent. I expected him to ask me what I planned to do. Instead, he said, "I'm sorry." I nearly cried, not because the apology fixed anything, because he was the first person in my family who responded to what happened to me before discussing what might happen to Lauren. He said, "I should have known something was wrong." "You couldn't have." "She asked me for money a few months ago. Your mother stopped me from asking questions." That was new. "How much?" $1,400. "For the payment?" "I guess." I closed my eyes. My mother had not only kept the secret, she had helped Lauren continue keeping the account current. I asked, "Did Mom tell you what it was for?" "No." "What did she say?" "That Lauren had a temporary shortfall and we should just help her." I said nothing. Dad sounded angry now. Not at me, at the situation. He said, "You do whatever you have to do to fix your credit." That mattered. Then he added, "I love your sister, but this is not yours to carry." I wrote that sentence down later. This is not yours to carry. It was almost the opposite of everything I had learned growing up. The next several weeks were paperwork, calls, affidavits, reports, copies of identification, account disputes, follow-ups. I do not want to make it sound exciting. It wasn't. There was no dramatic detective montage. Mostly there were hold times and forms asking the same questions in slightly different ways. But each document did something important. It moved the situation out of family language. Inside my family, everything came with emotional explanations. Lauren was overwhelmed. Lauren had Ethan. Lauren had bad credit. Lauren was paying. Lauren meant to fix it. Lauren was ashamed. Outside the family, the questions were different. Did Natalie authorize this loan? No. Did Natalie receive the proceeds? No. Did Natalie agree to be responsible for the debt? No. Was the account opened with Natalie's permission? No. Those questions were brutally simple. My mother hated that simplicity. She called me repeatedly during the first week. At first I answered. She kept saying, "There has to be another way." I asked, "What way?" "Lauren takes over the balance." "How?" "She could find a lender." "She tried." "Maybe your father and I could help." "Then help her with whatever consequences she has. I am still disputing the account." Mom became frustrated. "You don't have to be so rigid." "About whether a debt is mine?" "You know what I mean." "No, I don't." "You always see everything in black and white." I said, "My name on a loan I never authorized is pretty black and white." "She wasn't trying to hurt you." "Intent does not make me responsible for it." "What if reporting this ruins her? What if keeping it ruins me?" Mom said, "It wouldn't ruin you." I went silent. There it was again. "Not. It won't hurt you. It wouldn't ruin you. Because I was stronger. Because I had savings. Because I had good credit. Because I could recover." Even now, the argument was not that Lauren had done nothing wrong. The argument was that I was the safer person to absorb the damage. I said, "Mom, this is the last time I'm going to explain this. My ability to survive what Lauren did is not permission for her to do it." She started crying. I ended the call. After that, I stopped discussing the investigation with her. Lauren sent messages, some apologetic and some angry, some both in the same paragraph. One said, "I know what I did was wrong, but I don't think destroying my life makes it right." I did not answer. Another, "I have paid more than $4,000 on that loan. I wasn't trying to take money from you." I did not answer that either. Then, "You could pay it off with the bonus, and I could pay you monthly. Then none of this would have to happen." That one I screenshotted. Not because it changed anything, and because it revealed how little had changed in her thinking. Even after everything, her solution was still my money. Use Natalie's bonus. Protect Lauren. Create a private repayment arrangement. Keep the family intact. Let the responsible sister become the bank. I replied once, "No." Lauren responded immediately, "We're family." I stared at those words. Same sentence. Same logic. At dinner, "We're family" meant part of my bonus should belong to her. Now, "We're family" meant I should accept a fraudulent debt so she could avoid consequences. I typed a response, deleted it. Typed another, deleted that too. Finally, I wrote, "Being family meant you could ask me for help. It never meant you could answer for me." Then I muted her. The lender's investigation took time. The late payment remained on my report while things were reviewed. That made me angrier than I expected. Not because my credit score was my identity. It wasn't. But I had spent years building something invisible. Every bill paid on time. Every balance managed. Every financial decision that nobody celebrated because nothing went wrong. And with one unauthorized account, Lauren had inserted herself into a record that was supposed to represent my choices. That was what felt violating. Not just the money, authorship. She had written a financial decision into my history without me. I started reviewing old family patterns differently. There were moments I had once categorized as Lauren being careless. Now I saw entitlement underneath them. The time she used my streaming account for months after I changed the password and then complained when I logged her out. The time she borrowed my car and returned it nearly empty. The time she volunteered me to help pay for a cousin's baby shower because Natalie can handle the decorations. Small things, nothing remotely comparable to the loan, but the same assumption. Access first, permission later, if necessary. My mother had participated too, not in opening the loan, but in the belief that keeping Lauren stable justified withholding the truth from me. I confronted her about the $1,400 Dad had mentioned. She admitted it. Lauren had called crying because she was short. Mom gave her the money. Then later persuaded Dad to reimburse part of it without telling him what it was really for. I asked, "So you helped keep the loan current?" Mom said, "I helped my daughter." "You have 2 daughters." She went quiet. I said, "You protected one daughter's secret by keeping another daughter financially exposed." "That isn't fair." "Which part?" "I thought Lauren would fix it." "Without me ever knowing?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do." She started crying. I did not comfort her. That felt cruel at first. Then I realized I had spent my life protecting people from the emotional experience of hearing what they had done. I had softened language, added disclaimers, explained that I understood, explained that I knew they meant well, explained that I loved them. Sometimes all that softness allows people to concentrate on the reassurance instead of the boundary. So I said, "You knew enough to hide it from me. That's what I need you to understand." She whispered, "I was scared." So was Lauren. Yes, and because both of you were scared, I was the only person not allowed to know what was happening in my own name. Mom did not have an answer. My relationship with her changed after that. Not permanently, maybe, but immediately. I stopped telling her anything financial, not my salary, not my bonus, not what I owed and not what I saved, not what I planned to buy. If she asked, I said, "I'm fine." The phrase she had used for years, only now it meant something different. I'm fine. Not, therefore I can help. Just, this information belongs to me. My father's reaction to Lauren was harder. He was furious. For several weeks, they barely spoke. I told him I did not want him punishing her on my behalf. He said, "I'm not doing it for you." He was angry that Lauren had done it, and angry that Mom had hidden it. Their marriage had its own conflict now. I felt guilty about that for exactly one day. Then I reminded myself that I had not created the secret. I had discovered it. There is a difference. About 6 weeks after the dispute began, I received a letter from the lender confirming they had completed part of their investigation and were correcting the reporting connected to the unauthorized account while the matter continued through their fraud process. I read the letter twice. Then I cried. Not dramatically. I sat at my kitchen table and cried for maybe 5 minutes. Because for the first time since the alert appeared, I felt like my financial identity was becoming mine again. The process was not instantly over. There were additional questions, additional documentation, more waiting. There were consequences for Lauren that I did not control and will not pretend I fully understood. She had to deal directly with the lender and the investigation. There were formal reports associated with what had happened. She got legal advice. My parents helped her with those costs. I did not object. That was their money, their choice. That distinction mattered now. People could help Lauren. They simply could not make me help her. A relative called me one afternoon and said, "Couldn't you have handled this privately?" I asked, "How?" "Well, Lauren pays you back." "Pays me back for what?" "The loan. I never gave her a loan." "You know what I mean." No, that's the entire problem. Everyone keeps talking like she borrowed money from me. The relative sighed. She made a terrible mistake. Yes. But does one mistake need to define her life? No. Then why? Because refusing to accept debt I didn't authorize isn't defining her life. It's defining mine. That ended the conversation. I stopped taking calls from relatives after that. Family disputes become strange when everyone wants to negotiate with the person who has the clearest boundary. Nobody called Lauren and said, "Why don't you just accept the consequences?" They called me and said, "Why don't you find another solution?" Because another solution usually meant moving part of the cost back onto me. The bonus sat mostly untouched during all of this. That surprised me. Before the dinner, I had a plan. Pay the student loan, invest, save, maybe travel. After discovering the unauthorized loan, I became almost afraid to move money. I wanted everything stable, visible, documented. Eventually, I paid off the remaining student loan exactly as I had planned. I remember clicking the final payment button, $11,000 and change. When the confirmation screen appeared, I felt lighter. That debt was mine. I had borrowed it, I had used it, I had agreed to it, and now I had paid it. Consent sounds like an abstract word until someone removes it from something financial. Then suddenly it becomes the entire difference between responsibility and violation. I moved $10,000 into my home fund. I invested some, and I spent a little over $2,000 on a trip with my friend Marissa. My mother thought traveling was irresponsible considering what Lauren was going through. She did not say it directly. She said, "I'm surprised you feel comfortable spending right now." I asked, "Why wouldn't I?" She said, "With everything happening." I understood. Lauren had legal expenses. Lauren had debt. Lauren was stressed. Therefore, my own money was once again being measured against her need. I said, "I'm very comfortable with it." And I went. That trip was not revenge. I did not post photos hoping Lauren would see them. I did not buy anything extravagant. I sat by an ocean for 4 days and slept more than I had in months. One evening, Marissa asked me, what would have happened if the payment hadn't gone late? I had thought about that question many times. I don't know. She might have kept paying it. Probably. For years. Maybe. And you would have never known? I might have found it when I applied for a mortgage. That thought still scares me. Not because the loan would necessarily have destroyed my future, but because Lauren had built a plan around me never knowing. That was the part I could not forgive quickly. She said she was going to tell me. But when? After refinancing and after paying it off? After she needed another favor? If the late payment had never appeared, would the confession ever have come? I will never know. About 4 months after the dinner, Lauren asked to meet. By then, we had barely spoken. I agreed to coffee in a public place. She looked different, not physically, just less certain. For the first time I can remember, Lauren seemed uncomfortable asking me for anything. She said, "Hey, I know you're not going to forgive me because I say sorry." I said, "Correct." She nodded. Then she said, "I've been thinking about the dinner." I waited. I really did think you should give me some of the bonus." "I know. I didn't see anything wrong with that." "I know." She looked down at her coffee. "And that's the scary part." I said nothing. She continued, "I think I got used to the idea that because you always had more room, you were supposed to make room for me." That was probably the most honest thing she had ever said about us. She said, "When I needed money, Mom and Dad found it. When they couldn't, sometimes you did. And when you said no, everybody acted like you were being difficult." I nodded. Lauren wiped her eyes. "I knew the loan was wrong." I looked at her. She said, "I want to be clear. I knew." That mattered, not because it made what she did worse, because she finally stopped using panic as a substitute for responsibility. She said, "I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I wasn't stealing because I was making payments. I told myself your score was good enough that one account wouldn't matter. I said, "You knew I would say no." "Yes, and you did it anyway." "Yes." For once, there was no, but no, I have Ethan. No, I was desperate. No, you make more. Just yes. Lauren said, "When you got the bonus, I thought that was how I'd get out." "How?" "I thought you'd give me enough to pay the balance down. Then I could refinance or finish it faster, and I'd tell you later." So the dinner really was connected. Yes. I already knew, but hearing her say it still hurt. I said, "You sat there demanding my money so you could fix something you had already done to me." She nodded. "Yes." Then she said, "I don't expect you to trust me." I appreciated that more than another apology. I said, "I don't." She cried. So did I. Quietly. People imagine boundary conversations end with one person making a perfect speech. Ours did not. We sat there for almost an hour. We talked about childhood, about mom, about money, about all the times I rescued her and all the times she resented me for seeming more successful. Lauren admitted something I had never understood. She said my stability made her feel judged even when I was not judging her. Every time I saved money, she saw evidence that she had failed to. Every time our parents praised me for being responsible, she heard criticism of herself. So when she needed help, part of her did not just feel desperate. She felt that I owed her for having the easier life. I told her, my life wasn't easier because I planned. She said, "I know that now." I said, "No, you know it intellectually. I need you to understand something else. I cannot spend the rest of my life paying a penalty because my stability makes you uncomfortable." She nodded. Then she asked, "What happens with us?" I said, "I don't know." That was the truth. I loved my sister. I also did not trust her with basic information about me. Those two facts had to exist together. I told her there would be no financial relationship between us for the foreseeable future. No loans, no co-signing, no shared accounts, no access to documents, no borrowing my cards, no using my address, nothing. She said, "I understand." I said, "If you ask Mom or Dad for information about my finances, that will also be a problem." She nodded. Then I told her something harder. "I need you to stop saying we're family when you mean you should give me what I want." Her face changed. She looked ashamed. I said, "Family is why I helped you before. Family is why I'm sitting here now. Family is not a financial authorization." She whispered, "I know." Maybe she did. Maybe she was beginning to. My relationship with my mother took longer. She believed I had been too harsh, not about disputing the loan. Eventually, she accepted that I had to, but about the emotional aftermath. She thought I should forgive Lauren faster because Lauren was remorseful. She thought I should stop mentioning that Mom had hidden it. She wanted the family to return to normal. I did not. Normal was part of the problem. Normal was Lauren needing something. Normal was Mom protecting her. Normal was Dad avoiding confrontation. Normal was me absorbing the cost because I was the one who would be fine. I told Mom, "I don't want normal back." She looked hurt. I said, "I want better." That conversation did not magically fix us, but over time, she changed a few things. She stopped telling Lauren about my finances. At least as far as I know, she apologized for keeping the loan secret, a real apology, not, "I'm sorry you felt betrayed." She said, "I knew something had been done in your name and I let fear for Lauren become more important than telling you the truth. That was wrong." I accepted the apology. Trust took longer. My father became more direct with Lauren. He stopped paying random emergencies without asking what caused them. That created arguments. Lauren accused him of changing because of me. He told her, "No, I'm changing because I helped teach you that somebody would always clean things up." I wish he had learned that 10 years earlier. But late accountability is still accountability. Lauren eventually enrolled in a debt management program with professional guidance and made major changes to how she handled money. She sold her expensive car, moved to a cheaper apartment when her lease ended, stopped starting businesses every time she hated her job. None of that happened because I rescued her. That was important. For the first time, the solution to Lauren's financial life came from Lauren's own choices. A year after the credit alert, my records were clean again. The unauthorized account no longer appeared as my responsibility. My score recovered. I qualified for a mortgage pre-approval, and eventually I bought a townhouse. Nothing huge. 2 bedrooms, a small patio, a kitchen with more counter space than I needed. My parents came over after I moved in. Dad brought a toolbox. Mom brought food. Some family habits survive every crisis. Lauren did not come that day. I had not invited her yet. A few weeks later, I did. She arrived with Ethan and a small plant. Not expensive, no dramatic gift. She looked around and said, "This is really nice." I said, thanks. Then she added, "And I'm not going to ask what it cost." I laughed. For the first time in a long time, I laughed with her, instead of because I could not believe what she had said. We are not as close as we used to be. Maybe we never will be. But the relationship we have now is more honest. Lauren knows I will help in some ways. I will watch Ethan. I will listen. I will show up when something genuinely terrible happens. I will celebrate her wins. I will probably buy dinner more often than she does. What I will not do is become infrastructure again. I am not her emergency fund. I am not her lender. I am not her backup credit score. I am not proof that the family has enough money somewhere. And most importantly, my name is not a resource. That is what the whole thing taught me. At first, I thought the story was about my bonus. That dinner stayed in my head because the entitlement was so obvious. My sister looked at money I had earned and decided she could allocate it. Half for me, half for her. We're family. It was outrageous. But compared with what I discovered later, it was almost harmless. Because the dinner revealed something I had not understood. Lauren did not merely believe I should share when she needed help. She believed my financial stability belonged partly to the family, my savings, my income, my credit, my ability to recover, even my name. The loan was simply the farthest that belief had ever traveled. And my mother's silence came from the same place. Lauren might be hurt by consequences. Natalie can handle it. Lauren might struggle if the truth comes out. Natalie will be fine. Lauren has a child. Natalie has savings. Again and again, my strength was used as an argument for why I should absorb more harm. I do not accept that anymore. Being stronger in one area does not make someone else's violations smaller. Being financially stable does not make your money public. Having good credit does not make your identity shareable. Being single does not mean you need less security. Having fewer immediate problems does not mean your future matters less. And loving someone does not mean protecting them from every consequence. Sometimes protecting someone from consequences is how you help them become comfortable creating bigger ones. Lauren had been rescued for years. By Mom, by Dad, by me. Eventually, she made a decision so large that no private family rescue could make it disappear. I hated what happened. I would never choose to go through it again. But something changed afterward. Lauren learned that asking and taking are different. My mother learned that protecting one child can become betrayal of another. My father learned that rescuing someone repeatedly can become part of the problem. And I learned that boundaries are not punishment. They are information. They tell people where you end and they begin. They explain what belongs to you. Your time, your money, your home, your decisions, your name. At dinner, Lauren said, "We're family." For years, those words had been almost magical in our house. They could turn a loan into a gift, a favor into an expectation, a boundary into selfishness, a bad decision into everybody's emergency. Not anymore. We're family means you can call me. It means you can ask. It means I might help. It means I care what happens to you. It does not mean you can decide what I owe. It does not mean you can promise my money. It does not mean you can use my financial history. It does not mean you can sign me into a problem because you believe I am strong enough to survive it. Family gives you a relationship, not authorization. The bonus is long gone now. Some went to debt. Some went toward my townhouse. Some was invested. Some bought 4 peaceful days by the ocean. I could not tell you exactly where every dollar ended up without checking my records, but I remember exactly what it taught me. The most valuable thing I protected that year was not $41,000. It was the right to decide. My sister thought half my bonus belonged to her because we were family. Then I found the loan, and I realized the bonus was never the real boundary. My name was. And that was the one thing I finally stopped letting anyone else use.